Hi everyone, I'm Rincey and this is Rincey Reads. Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. I've got a lot of things I gotta cover, so let's jump in. So the first video I made this month was an announcements video, and I kind of have updates on all of those announcements. First off, the Q&A, it is coming. I meant to record it before I left for California, but then I recorded it and it was really crappy. I think I was just so tired because I had so much to do before I left. So I'm going to re-record it and release it hopefully this month, but it is coming. But if you do want to leave questions for the Q&A, you can go back to the video that I'm linking. But thank you to everyone who's asked questions so far. I promise I'm going to be answering them this month. Secondly, Moby Dick. The Moby Dick read-along will be happening in the month of August. I've created a Google Docs spreadsheet that I mentioned in that announcements video. I will have that linked in the description. The goal is to read 4 to 5 chapters a day. I do have like one catch-up day scheduled in there as well. I probably won't be doing weekly updates just because I don't think I'm going to have time to do that, but I'm hoping to do sort of like a midpoint update and then an update at the end of the month, or like a final video at the end of the month. If you are on Twitter or on Instagram or anything like that, use the hashtag AhabAugust, and thank you to everyone who left really fun hashtag ideas in the comment section of that video because it was great. But Ahab August is the one I decided to go with. If you have any questions about the read-along, if this is your first time participating in one, it's pretty simple. Just read Moby Dick and then comment on Twitter or Instagram or whatever your preferred social media is about the story or anything that you feel or anything like that. This is all just meant to be like a discussion. Third, there was also a link to a Kindle Fire giveaway that was happening. It is still open. It closes on the 31st, so if you're watching this after the 31st, then you're too late. But if you're watching this on the 31st and you haven't entered yet, that is still open as well. So there's a link to that in the announcements video as well. And finally, VidCon in California were just so fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone who came out to the BookTube panel, and thank you to everyone who's like recently subscribed to my channel, either because you met me or saw me at VidCon or anything like that. Definitely appreciated so much. It was such a great experience. Okay, moving forward, the other videos that I made this month was an unboxing video from Landfall Freight. If you haven't checked that out already, definitely do. It is a new subscription box service that focuses on comics that are either written by or starring female people or characters. And then I put up 2 book reviews this month. A review of Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee, which is very much the book everyone is talking about at the moment. I had some mixed feelings on it, but mixed more towards the positive than the negative. You guys have been leaving some really great comments in the comment section of that video as well, so thank you for that. I always love talking to you guys about books, obviously. And then the final book that I reviewed was Cinnamon and Gunpowder by Eli Brown. That book was just so much fun and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Definitely check out that video if you haven't already, or just pick up the book because it's just such a great book. Now, in terms of the other books that I read this month, the first book that I finished was Persuasion by Jane Austen. I think I actually finished this technically in June, but I finished this after my last wrap-up went up, so I'm going to talk about it here. I like this book. I didn't completely love it. I know this is a lot of people's favorite Austen, but for me, I felt like the story was a lot of telling versus showing. A lot of this is following the backstory between Anne Elliot and Captain Wentworth and knowing about their history, and I felt like we just heard a lot about their history and we didn't really get to see a lot of them together. This is also a shorter Austen novel, so I feel like there wasn't just quite enough development for me personally. A lot of people say this is a lot more mature, which is definitely for sure, and a lot of people like this one because Captain Wentworth's letter towards the end of the book is just really great, and I could totally understand why you love this book so much. But for me, Pride and Prejudice is just really my favorite. But yeah, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I liked it. If you're someone who likes Jane Austen and you haven't read Persuasion yet, it is definitely one worth reading. It's definitely a very different relationship and has a very different perspective, I think, because Jane Austen was older when she wrote this one, but I feel like it was missing some of that like chemistry that is present in Pride and Prejudice and some of her other books, even Northanger Abbey. Like, you see the characters talking to each other and you see them interacting with each other, and one of my favorite things about Jane Austen is just sort of seeing that back and forth between characters. And there isn't a lot of conversation in this book. It's mostly just description of things that happened or descriptions of conversations, but not the actual conversations themselves. The next book that I finished was Brushback by Sarah Paretsky. I believe is how you say her name. This is the 17th book in this detective series. I read this for review for Bookspan. It wasn't really my cup of tea personally, and I felt like just kind of a standard detective novel. The selling point for me was the fact that it was placed in Chicago, and I'm from Chicago, so it was really great to see like my city used. But at the same time, while I was reading this book, the author and the character makes references to all of these different places that I know, but I can't imagine that anyone outside of the city or anyone who doesn't know the city extremely well would understand or be able to picture or reference. So it's like maybe this is just meant to be for people who are from Chicago or who love Chicago, because all of those references, outside of like the big ones like Millennium Park and things like that, I can't imagine that you would really know what you're supposed to be imagining in your head. The mystery itself is pretty good. I wasn't able to guess like who did it or anything like that. In this series, you're following this detective named V.I. Warshawski? Yes, Warshawski. Sorry, I had to look at my notes to see how to pronounce that. She is this female detective who grew up on the south side of Chicago and eventually left for the north side. If you don't know, the south side of Chicago is like a rougher, not as affluent area. So she ended up eventually leaving, and she left sort of that world behind. But then one day, her high school boyfriend comes to her office asking for help. His mother was in jail because she was accused of killing his younger sister Annie when they were in high school or college, something along those lines. And so she's finally out, and the mom now wants to prove that she was wrongfully convicted. And Frank asks for VI's help in this mystery, and then it turns into this whole bigger thing that really involves VI's past. One of the things I did like about this book is that I, again, haven't read any of the others in the series, so I was a little worried that I would be missing some like backstory or some information that would be key to the whole mystery, but the author does a good job of making sure that this is still accessible for people. If you're someone who likes like Kathy Reichs or Sue Grafton or any of those other sort of serial detective books, then this is definitely one worth picking up because it is pretty good. The next book that I finished was Lois Lane Fallout by Gwenda Bond. This is a young adult novel that follows the famous Superman character Lois Lane when she is in high school. Lois is an army brat. She moves around a lot, and she also gets into a decent amount of trouble, mostly because she doesn't know how to keep her mouth shut. When she sees something, she says something about it. She doesn't back down from a fight, things like that. In this story, the family has just moved into Metropolis, and Lois is determined to try to stay out of trouble, but of course she can't. She ends up seeing a girl who's getting bullied by another group, and she ends up joining this like high school newspaper group that's in connection with the Daily Planet. This book is a lot of fun. In here, Lois Lane reminded me a lot of like Veronica Mars. She's very snarky, she's very headstrong, she tries very hard to do what's right or what she considers to be right despite the consequences. She stands up for the underdog, things like that. So if you liked Veronica Mars and that tone and that voice, then I think you would like this book. However, at the same time, I felt like this book was a little bit predictable. It's very clear who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. I don't think there was anything in here that really surprised me. I felt like it was all pretty clearly laid out. I think this is just like a fun book, and if you like, again, Veronica Mars and you are into comic books but not super deep into comic books, this might be just a really fun book to check out. And the final book that I finished this month is All Our Pretty Songs by Sarah McCarry. This is another young adult book. It follows these two girls growing up in the Pacific Northwest who are basically brought up like sisters. One of the girls, her father is a famous musician, and this girl just has a really troubled past. And then there is the narrator, who doesn't actually have a name, who's like extremely devoted to her best friend. This was an interesting book. I liked the concept, but I didn't like the execution overall. The writing in here is very, very lyrical, which I feel like worked very well since a lot of this is about music and the music industry and things like that. So having extremely beautiful lyrical prose worked really well and made it a lot more atmospheric. But at the same time, I felt like this book was also slightly underdeveloped, and you kind of just have to go with whatever she's throwing at you. This isn't a 100% realistic book. There are some slightly magical elements that are happening here, although the magical elements in here could theoretically be explained with like drug use and things like that. Also, I felt like this book didn't go deep enough for me. There are a lot of difficult topics that this book discusses, but it felt like it discussed it in a very superficial way. It's partially also because this book is very short. It's like a little over 200 pages. And this is also the first book in a trilogy, which I definitely did not realize when I picked this book up. So when this book ended, I was like, what's going on? And then I looked it up and realized that there's more coming. But I probably won't keep going with the series. So yeah, that's everything that I read this month. One thing that I definitely noticed is that I read All White People this month, which was a total fail on my part. So next month, besides Moby Dick, I'm going to be making it a point to try to read outside of the white people bubble. Currently, I'm reading The Architect's Apprentice by Elif Shafak. Hopefully I said that correctly, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm about halfway through it at this point. The first half I like sped through because I could not put this story down, but now that I've passed the halfway point, I'm actually doing the thing where I'm slowing down because I want to savor the story a little bit more and enjoy it a little bit more, and I don't want it to be over just yet. Probably going to be doing a full review of this book next month because I do want to talk about it, but I will just say, if you're someone who liked The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, like that series, I think you would like this one. There's no magical elements in here. It takes place in 1500s Turkey during the Ottoman Empire, but I think like the storytelling aspect of The Name of the Wind and also the coming of age story and this young boy who's growing up and learning about the world and trying to figure out right and wrong and the complexities of the world, like that aspect of The Name of the Wind is very much present in this book, and it's giving me a lot of similar feels. Also, this has become easily the most quoted book on my Tumblr. If you don't know or you don't follow me on Tumblr, I put any like quotes that I would normally underline in a book. I put them on my Tumblr because I just like to keep and remember them, and I have posted so many on my Tumblr over the past couple of days from this book because the writing in here is so fantastic. So yeah, I mean, even without finishing it, I already kind of recommend this book to you guys, but I'll be putting up a full review and I'll talk about it more in my August wrap up. So yeah, that's everything I have for you guys. If you have any questions about any of the books that I talked about or any comments about any of the books that I talked about, feel free to leave that down in the comment section. Or if you have any questions about the Moby Dick readathon or read along, I keep saying readathon, feel free to leave that down in the comment section as well. So yeah, that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching.